everyone. Welcome to the Pens and the Bookmarks, an edutaining roundtable where both the readers and the writers weigh in on all things bookish. Who's right, who's wrong, who knows, and who cares? We'll be bringing our drinks, but leaving the drama. I'm A.E. Kincaid, and I write humorous fantasy adventure stories. I like my Bond movies with high stakes, but my baking shows with low stakes.
I'm Whitney, and I like both, but I would say my fantasy with high stakes, everything else, I think I want to be pretty low.
I'm Megan J. Dahl. I'm a high stakes gal.
I'm Lou, and I need all my high stakes to exist in completely fictional fantasy realms and everything else to be low stakes.
I'm Kimberly Grimes, and I am still not exactly sure what stakes are. So
And
we'll see
that's
where
why
this
we're
goes.
doing this today. In case we know that there are some of you who are also not entirely sure about the stakes question, like what that actually means, because we did a poll before. And while most of you said, I just love to read, I'll read anything, there are a few who were saying, not really sure what the difference is. So we are here for you. We don't have a lot of news this week, but the news that we do have is epic. So Kimberly, over to you.
I am super excited. Last week, I was able to do a cover reveal for my upcoming YA dark fantasy, and I'm really, really excited to share that with you guys. So this is Shade of Light. It is book 1 in my upcoming 3 Shades trilogy. I do have a cover for the hardback cover and one for the paperback. So I'm super excited. I worked with an amazing artist who did the character artwork through Fiverr, and he's actually working with me on all the second covers because I just loved working with him. He was absolutely great, and he did an amazing job. So he did the artwork, and then I did the layout design and everything. Really excited.
That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome. It's pretty.
Congratulations. Yay. So that was news for all of us. That was awesome. We love it. And speaking of books, bookish podcast, what are we all reading? Kimberly, what are you reading?
Okay. Yes, Hellbent is still on there.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I am slow going with Hellbent. It's book 2. It's an amazing audiobook. I love the narrator and everything. But my time for listening to audiobooks is limited. But I did start reading Imposters by Scott Westerfield. Actually, I started reading Imposters last winter, and I got like a third in, and then I just got distracted with the holidays and everything. So I'm picking it up again. Same with Blade of Secrets, which is book 1 in this. I can't remember if it's a duology or a trilogy, but is it a 2-book?
Mm-hmm.
So I got like a third way in, and both were really interesting stories. Though I'm starting to wonder. I don't know if anybody's read The Uglies by Scott Westerfeld, and I'm wondering if I should have read that series before I jumped into Imposters, because I think this comes after. But yes, so that is what I am currently reading.
How about you, Whitney? What are you reading?
I jumped on the Bookstagram bandwagon and bought myself a copy of Fourth Wing. And I am about a quarter in, I think, and I'm really enjoying it. I understand the hype. It was very easy to get into. There is no backstory. She just drops you right in on a dramatic day, and you're just in there. Speaking of stakes, you just start with the high stakes and you hit it. So yes, I will be much looking forward to finishing that up. My romance read right now is Girl Gone Viral. This is part of a 3-book set by Alicia Rye. And I really enjoyed the first one. They're all very, very like dating app type face. Anyway, that's part of the trope in those, but they're really good. And The Mountain in the Sea, I just actually finished it last night, but we'll call it current. I am reading some of the Nebula Award nominees for this year, and that's one. And I've read a couple of the novellas. Anyway, so I am newish to science fiction, but I really enjoy it. So this one has a lot about octopus development, and it's futuristic, but not in an unapproachable way. Sometimes they're so far in the future and things are so wild that it's like, what is happening? And so this was less of that, which maybe is why it's winning an award, because more people should be able to read it and understand it. It's not quite as heady. So anyway, highly enjoying all of my reads.
That sounds really cool. I also like the not an octopus on the cover.
Yes. You wouldn't know it's an octopus just by looking at it, I guess, unless you're like really kind of looking close. But once I tell you it's an octopus.
So clever. Those cover designers. Awesome. Megan, how about you?
So I am reading Blitz by Daniel O'Malley. This is the third Sheke novel, the first of which is The Rook, which is one of my favorite books of all time. So I was, strolling through the books, the online bookstore, as I, as you do when you're supposed to be reading your giant bookshelf of TBR. And I found this. And I didn't even know it was out. So I was absolutely ecstatic. I've only just started reading it, but I am super excited. Supernatural Secret Service. If that's your bag, Daniel O'Malley.
Isn't that the greatest feeling when you like sort of forget that you were waiting for a book to come out and then you just see it's out? Like,
yeah, I didn't know, because they're sort of standalones within the universe. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know that another one was coming. And then magically it was there. Awesome. And the cover's pretty different from the other one. So I didn't recognize it right away until I saw the author name. And I thought, wait, what?
That's a fun feeling.
Real.
Actually, every time I hear about The Rook, or anyone says the word rook, I think of you because of our Rebel Diaries. One of the Rebel Diaries reels. Awesome. How about you, Lou?
All right. Well, I just finished up Practice Makes Perfect last night. So I actually read that in 2 days in like 3 sittings, which really I only stopped reading in between because, I have 4 kids and life, happens. They need to eat. I think I liked it even better than her first one. It was so sweet. It was so sweet. Sarah Adams is doing this whole series basically spun off of Audrey Hepburn films. So there's that. And like it's like the films and the love of the films plays an active part in the storyline. So it's not like she's just like spinning off of them and you kind of know it's there, but it's like a whole part. It was precious. Like it was precious. And it was like, I don't know, they had great backstories and like real trauma in their lives, like legitimate, like real issues. But it never felt heavy. And the way that they learned to process it was just super wise and super realistic. Like it just felt really like, I don't know. It was like such a feel good book. The whole thing. I loved both the characters. I loved the town. I loved the romance. It was just great. Low stakes at its finest. And then the other 2 I'm reading. So Tales of the Forgotten Founders by C.W. Allen. And I am early days on this one, but I have read the first 2 books in this trilogy and just absolutely adored them. And confessionally, I have been sitting on this one. The publisher sent me the book for this one a while back, and I have just been waiting for a bit because this is the last one, and I'm just not ready to say goodbye to these kids. It's just a fun middle grade fantasy series, and I just adore it. So yeah, early days, but I'm loving it and also kind of having bittersweet feelings the whole way through. And then the last one, A Summer with the Hermit King, is a cozy mystery. So I'm a couple chapters into this one, but I will review it on my Bookstagram later this week. So you can definitely check that one out. But I'm really enjoying and intrigued by the mystery of it all so far. So check it out later, and I will let you know what I thought.
I also read Tales of the Forgotten Founders, and it was my favorite of the series. And I don't know how authors do that, where like every book gets better, but she did. So that was awesome. And Lou and I also read. We finished Where the Woods End. Terrifying, but I loved it too.
It was a ride.
It was a lot. But I would recommend it to people who like that type of book, which is basically middle grade horror fantasy. If that's
Is that
you,
a category?
It was the book.
it was, yeah, it was terrifying. The imagination that went into the sort of creature aspects of this book, I couldn't get over. Somebody make a horror movie out of this. We finished that, and then I'm like on a nonfiction binge right now. So I'm reading Forces for Good, which is about like best practices for nonprofits. And then also for my author life, I'm reading The Art of Language Invention, which is by David J. Peterson. He is the person who he created the Dothraki language. He created the language for the Dark Elves in the Thor movies. Like he's done so much conlang, and he was a guest on the Rebel Author podcast with Sasha Black last year, possibly 2 years ago. I don't know, but this has been on my TBR since he was on that, and I'm finally getting a chance to read it. So I'm very excited.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's very technical. Like it has a cool like history of conlang in the beginning, and then it gets into technical, like how languages would evolve because of the sounds that any given person could potentially make. You know, like that should be part of what people take into account when they're creating them. And I don't know, it's technical, but it's also very, very cool. So I'll let you know.
I love the cover. It's really catching.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, enough with the nonfiction, because our guest today is Liz Delton. Liz is a fantasy author, a full-time parent, and owner of Tourmaline and Quartz Publishing. She has always enjoyed the backstage life of storytelling, considering she holds a degree in theater management from University of the Arts. Liz writes fierce heroines and fantastic worlds. The author of the 4 Cities of Arcera series, the Realm of Camellia series, the Everturn Chronicles, and Seasons of Soldark. She also publishes notebooks for writers. World building is her favorite part of writing, and she is always dreaming up new fantastic places. She loves drinking tea and traveling, and gets all her writing done when her kids are asleep. Gosh, we feel that, don't we? Welcome, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I have my tea, of course, so I'm ready.
We actually modified our lightning round questions for your love of tea. So, but I guess first thing, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to jump right into it. And why don't you give our listeners an idea of the difference between low stakes and high stakes stories using your books as examples?
Sure. So low stakes generally is in something that's cozy, I would say. Something that's an easier read. The low stakes in one of my most recent book, Spectacle of the Spring Queen, just came out May 9th. The low stakes are the main character, May, arrives in a new city. She's getting ready to open up a seamstress shop. As soon as she sets foot in the city, she loses all her money, falls into the ocean. Her trunks are missing, and she has to figure out how she's going to make it in a new city. So it's low because it's not life or death. She does have somewhere to live. Eventually, she'll get her trunks back, but it's going to take a couple of months, she's told. So it's low because, it's not world ending. But it's, her kind of emotional world is still crashing down. So they are still stakes, but they're fairly low. So it's kind of a low stress read, is what I like to think of it as. High stakes, as you can kind of infer, it is usually world ending, life or death types of situations. So my other series that just completed in, I think it was end of February, the Realm of Camellia series. Um, Very high stakes. I won't give any spoilers. So in the first book, she travels to a new realm, finds out she has magic, and then is kind of accused of being a spy. So it is life or death, kind of right away. And she's figuring out, she's transported to another realm. It's portal fantasy. So that's a little different, a little more stressful. And there's a lot more action and fighting and things like that. So I think that's kind of a good dichotomy of the two different stakes there. And I just kind of enjoy kind of switching between the two of them in my different series.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So life or death, obviously there are a few higher stakes. But I'm willing to bet that that your seamstress in the moment is feeling like her stakes are pretty high.
Right.
It's just
Right.
we understand, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it has to have some kind of stakes because, it wouldn't be a story if something didn't go wrong or, something exciting wasn't happening. So it needs, they're low, but not non-existent.
So how do you keep things interesting when the stakes are low? Does pacing come into play? Are there other things that you think about?
I think pacing is definitely key. And I think that might be why my cozy stories ended up being novellas because because it's low, I wanted it to keep moving. And in my longer works, there are, kind of lower energy chapters where certain things need to happen, but it's not as exciting as like the battle scenes. But in the cozy, I call it's cozy steampunk fantasy because it's technically steampunk, but it's not as like guns and airships as some steampunk is. So in the cozy steampunk, they ended up being novellas because it was just like it just kept moving. And so the pacing was pretty like consistently ramping up with those small stakes.
So this is a question for Liz, but also will be open to everyone. We have cozy mysteries, we have cozy fantasies, and mysteries and fantasies. Like a lot of time when we talk about mystery, we're also talking about murder. We talk about fantasy. We talk about some life or death, world-ending kind of stuff. So these are both typically high drama genres. Why do you think people are drawn to these lower stakes versions?
So I think they're definitely a great palate cleanser when you're reading lots of world-ending books. I think people are drawn to it in that way. And then also, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm living pretty high stakes over here with my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old. So I sometimes just want a really nice, like, casual book to read, and then it's still in my chosen genre of fantasy.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, because I while I am mostly a high stakes gal, since I read mostly science fiction and fantasy, I it's not that I don't enjoy a low stakes once in a while. I recently read Legends and Lattes, which is probably the most famous of the cozy fantasy genre right now, and I think there's something kind of lovely about a book that's set in a fantasy world or even a science fiction world that is based on the relationships between those characters. And of course, fantasy can add some interesting elements on on what the on how those characters interact as well. So
I was gonna say, like, similarly to that, like, I think too, like, I think when you like love a genre, like I don't know, I think of mystery and I think of like fantasy as almost like comfort genres. Like some of my favorite stories come from those. But I'm also a highly like emotive person, Enneagram type 4, feel all the feelings. Um, and yeah, like so sometimes I want the comfort of the genres that I love, but I don't have the emotional capacity to like get into those at their highest like possible stakes. And so it's just like it's the familiarity and the comfort of getting back into that kind of world building or storytelling that feels like home, but without like the added like stress or drama of all of the high stakes all of the time. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's the same reason why I really enjoy when an author will write more stories in the same universe. And they can sort of like have a different flavor, like Discworld, we've got like Rincewind and his like crazy wizard magic thing has one spell and doesn't know what it is. And then, then the Night Watch is more like police procedural mystery kind of thing. I just, the familiarity is like just comforting. And then to be able to do that, those stories are going on, like while all the big stories are happening, all these like world ending stories, they're all going on. But to be able to sort of spend some time with those who are doing the other things, the everyday stuff.
Just living their lives.
What is normal life like in my fantasy world?
I love that.
What about you, Whitney or Kimberly?
I think as Liz explains it, I think I grasp it a little bit more, understanding when you say life or death or world ending, those are high stakes. So it's like mind blown. Okay, I get it now. And it makes me realize when I do step back and I read more low stakes stories, it allows me to focus in more on how other authors are writing character voices and relationships, and I get to zone in on the craft more rather than focusing on the big stakes and the action of that. So when it comes like that, I'm able to understand it more from a writer's point as a learning. So yeah, and I do enjoy reading low stakes stories, but yeah, flip flop every now and then between the two.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, I'm also a big feeler, as Lou was saying. And I have to know what I'm getting into. Like I need to know in advance, is it high stakes or not? And I also read a lot of things at one time. I'm pretty chaotic that way, but I will pick up the thing that I'm in the mood for, because if I'm like getting ready to go to bed and I don't want to have to read 100 pages to get through the end of whatever stressful moment my characters are in, I want to pick up something that's like less intense. But it's also why I love rereading, because I can revisit a world that I love and a story and characters that I love. And even if it is really high stakes, I've already been to the other side. I do know what's going to happen. And so I can visit that again without like, although sometimes depending on what the stakes are, I still get that like, I can't stop here. I have to see them through this thing.
Fair.
Oh, somebody else? No?
I was just going to say, I love that. I love that edge of your seat kind of reading. That works for me. I am Enneagram 9, but I like my drama on the page, so I can get it all there.
Keep it fictional.
I think that's why I don't love thrillers, is like, especially thrillers that are things that can kind of happen, not that I'm trying to tell y'all what's real and not real, but like ghost stories versus like murderers. I'm like, I can't Sometimes I have to be like,
I feel you.
hey. To be really in the mood, and I have to know that I can get all the way through the book pretty quickly.
Yes.
Because I can't just like sleep on that. It's too much.
Yeah, Lou and I are familiar with that.
Because of middle grade horror.
It's so scary.
Ask me if that's the cap on the scary stories I can read.
Middle grade horror.
Middle grade horror.
Liz, this so do you write high stakes and low stakes concurrently? Like, are you working on one and then the other? Is it like a nice break for you, or do you kind of have to, like, if you're writing high stakes series, like that's the mind frame, and then like something else?
I really only work on one thing at a time. So yeah, I will kind of flip flop between the two. So I just published that low stakes steampunk, and I'm now working on an epic fantasy series. So I'm jumping back into the high stakes. I'm building like the whole series arc right now. So I'm figuring out all the stakes all at once. And but in the back of my mind, I do have plans to do more of those cozier steampunk stories. So they'll be there again, but I just I think I like to jump back and forth the same way I do with reading. I like to jump back and forth because I am also a rereader, and that was another kind of comfort reading thing for me too. So I would comfort read sometimes, and but then I also like those like heart pounding stories. So I like to jump back and forth in both reading and writing.
So this is another one. This is for Liz, but it's for everyone. What's one of your current high stakes or low stakes stories that you are enjoying?
I am reading the Tree of Ages series by Sarah C. Roth. I'm not 100% on that last name pronunciation, but it is an epic fantasy series, and the stakes are pretty high. Cities have been destroyed already. I'm on book 3 in the series, and it's a really nice, it's a really good quality epic fantasy.
Anybody else? You reading something that high stakes, low stakes? Megan, you said you read Legends and Lattes, which is low stakes.
I did. I've got another good low stakes example. After I read Legends and Lattes, I thought, oh, this is like, so Becky Chambers' A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I hope I got that title right. It's a low stakes science fiction, which is very a bit more unusual. And when I read it, I was expecting a full space opera, when's the risk of explosive decompression, like what's going on here, and it was all about the relationships, and it was a beautiful book. It was just lovely. It was beautiful to have it in that kind of world, and it was something really different and quite special. So there's my recommendation.
So while you're talking about Becky Chambers, I just read the Monk and Robot novellas by her as well, and they're the same thing. And I heard you talking, and I was like, I wonder if that's just the type of thing she writes, is science fiction. They're futuristic. They are things that are, we will never see, but they're just like feel good, and there's so much humanity put into it, and they're
really well done. I haven't read all of her books, but A Closed and Common Orbit was also excellent, and another perfect example.
When I finished those two, the Monk and Robot books are, oh my gosh, the new one is A Prayer for the Crown Shy, and A Psalm for the Wild Built is the first one. And they have really cool covers too, by the way. But I guess the Prayer for the Crown Shy is one of the Nebula novellas nominees.
I have one of her novellas on my shelf.
I'm very jealous. Oh, go ahead.
To be taught if fortunate?
Mm.
To be taught if fortunate. I've had that on my shelf forever, but the name sounded so familiar. So now I'm going to have to go and read it.
That's what I was going to say. I'm jealous of her ability to name these things because
Amazing.
the titles.
Mm-hmm.
I had like an opposite problem where I thought I was going to be doing a cozy read, and it turns out it was not at all. The 13 Witches is a middle grade fantasy series by Jodi Lynn Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
I was not anticipating it for a young middle school aged girl to have to go out and murder witches. Like I don't know why, but like I wasn't thinking that was.
I wasn't thinking. Odd.
I thought she was gonna have
I'm
to.
so stressed right now.
But like I didn't know there was witch murder. So yeah, so the opposite happened to me.
That's right.
It was
Well,
still good.
That's why it's important to broadcast the stakes, I think.
I will say this first like quarter of Fourth Wing that I've been reading has been so high stakes. And I guess it's a book about dragon riders. I assume that's a dangerous profession. But like every 5 sentences, it's very like eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may die. Like that's like the theme of the book. Like, you're probably just gonna die. I'm
We're probably just dying.
Nice.
That's true. Well, I was gonna say all of my reads right now are pretty low stakes because I have been putting off the high stakes book that I really need to read. I posted about it actually on Friday, but Claudia Kane sent me Wicked Walking, which is the second book in her series, and it is fae, and it is ghosts, and it is like, imaginative, but it is intense, and I have put it off because I know I'm going to have to read through it in huge chunks to be able to like sleep at night. But I'm hoping to get to it this week or next week. I posted about it last Friday and she commented on it and was like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear what you think." And I said, "I am equal parts excited and terrified." And she said, "Those are the correct emotions."
Oh,
yeah, I've been putting off a high stakes book right now.
That's why those low stakes ones are good palate cleansers.
That's exactly it. Yeah, awesome. So I think if it's okay with you, Liz, it's time for the lightning round.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So first question, go-to tea order.
Honestly, I don't order. I have a lot in my house, but my go-to is Earl Grey lavender.
Oh, didn't we just talk about that in an episode? Earl Grey, lavender, and honey.
I think we did. It's
Yeah.
ringing a bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I have like several pounds of it, of the loose leaf tea in my house.
Oh, that's magical.
What is your brand of choice?
Adagio. Those nice loose leaf tea. Yeah.
Nice. I have one of their teapots. Wow, I'm bad at lightning round. Lightning.
I'm hooked on Adagio because of Liz. So
Storm is far away. Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird, not by choice. Currently.
Children.
That life.
What's your favorite season?
It's definitely fall. Yeah.
What, if you have any, what are your auto-buy authors?
Right now, David Green, it's dark fantasy, and Rachel Renner is another indie fantasy author.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
And what's your comfort read?
Legends and Lattes.
Nice. Favorite fictional heroes or hero or heroine?
Ooh. I first thought of Vin from the Mistborn series.
Mm-hmm. Do love Finn. How about favorite fictional villain?
Fictional villain. I love Daemon Targaryen from the show was like the first one I thought of.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good villain.
He's so gray. If I could, I'm sorry, can you say that?
Oh, wear only one color for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It would be black. I am a goth at heart.
I love it. So this is not a lightning round question, but is there anything you would like to share with our audience? Any social profiles, links, recent release information?
Yeah, you can mostly find me on, go to my website, lizdelton.com. It has all my info. I'm on TikTok mostly, and Instagram and Facebook.
Great. And we will add all of that to the show notes as well. And let everyone know.
Liz and I are going to Vegas. So we will be in Vegas this November. So come find us.
Very exciting.
We'll both be signing books in Las Vegas at the Readers and Authors Vegas event at 20 Books to Vegas.
Yay. Well, Liz, thank you so much for joining us. It has been lovely having you with us today. To everyone who's listening, we would love to hear from you. Do you prefer high stakes or low stakes? What are some of your favorites in team high stakes or team low stakes, whatever. And next time we have a really cool topic, which is raising readers. It's like, how do you raise children? And maybe like Liz has some opinions here too.
Great, you can come next time, Liz.
Involve them in your book podcast. That's what you do. Thank you all so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Liz. So we all have kids of different ages. So we are, we're going to talk about how to raise readers and if it's possible. So hit subscribe so you don't miss it. You can find us on YouTube and as a podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and also Amazon Music. That's it for us today. I'm Amy from the Pens and the Bookmarks. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.